to see it. It was waiting. It wasn't good. I'm on the way down again. Good evening, everybody, and a tremendous Yasher Koyach for a very long day. It's a long day, a lot of sitting, a lot of listening.
They started at 6 o'clock. We've been doing it all week.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, who cares then? Oh, my gosh. I was going to give this whole introduction. Now I'm going to shorten my thing, but I'm going to make it 10 times longer now. Thanks. That's good to know. The truth of the matter is that, we just did, I give a Daf Yomi shir in the morning and once online. And we came to the Gemara where it says that, you're supposed to rush somebody to burial and not just like delay, stretch it out. And at every forum I tell it because I'm afraid my children are not going to listen to me. I don't want any hespedim. I tell them this. I tell it all the time. I've been eulogized so many times as I'm alive. Every time I get up to speak, people make speeches about me. He's the greatest thing in Klal Yisrael. He's da. It's all lies. I know it's lies. It's like, but I had enough of them. It just put me in the ground. And they said, but someone has to speak. I said, I'll record something, all right? But I said, I hate speeches. I didn't like them when I'm alive. Why do you think I'll like them when I'm dead? I can't stand sitting through speeches, There was this Jew, the Romans put him in with a bunch of lions, and the lions come running at him, and he yells something at them, and they run away, break through the doors. So he's saved. They said, what'd you tell him? I said, there's going to be speeches after dinner. So everybody went away. Nobody wants to listen to speeches. So, but you've been doing this for a whole week already, so you're used to it. Okay. The truth of the matter is, as Rabbi pointed out, that I have, one or two standard speeches that I give, and one of them is called Why Be Jewish. You can find it online. They in a lot of different places and stuff. It's a lot more fun in live, but you're not getting that one anyway. But I was speaking in Melbourne, Australia, and that was the topic they chose. And this woman comes over to me and says, "I heard this speech 8 times." I was like, oh my gosh, I'll do something else. She goes, no, I love it. I came to hear it in person, So I had to schlep to Australia for that. But anyway, are there any Australians here? No, I didn't think so. Yeah, there's one? Really? Oh. I don't know if you're aware of this, but your country is really inconveniently located. There's no way to get there. In fact, I came in Friday night. It took me 20 hours to get there from Eretz Yisrael. And I got up, I told the story, about this rabbi who used to get up and he'd speak every Shabbos for 10 minutes. And one time he got up and he spoke for 40 minutes and everybody was shocked. He says, well, I prepare my drasha on the way to shul and I moved. So now it's a 40-minute walk. So you get a 40-minute drasha, yeah? So I said, I've been flying for 20 hours. I hope you have no place to go. But anyway, so the truth of the matter is that I have lots of different things to talk about, and they all basically come down to the same message. Rabbi Dr. Orlofsky, Zatzal, he used to say, I wrote 30 books, but I really wrote one book 30 times, because they all have the same basic yesod. So all of my talks basically have the same basic yesod, which you will hopefully will see as we move along. In any event, this is a long winter's man. That's the way it's always referred to, because you have an extra Adar. And so where in a normal year, things would start to wind down now. Rosh Chodesh Adar, right? People spontaneously burst into song in the Beis Medrash to avoid learning, and they dance around, and people play shtick on each other, much of which is also from the Torah, and people, just getting into the Purim spirit, and it's so exciting, and you get to do that and wait 6 weeks, because that's it. They have an extra month, and you have to wait till it's Purim, so you have an extra Adar to get through. It's a little longer. But the Purim spirit does exist, and in fact, the Gemara says there's no difference between Adar Rishon and Adar Sheni except everything, right? Except for the Suda and for the Shalach Manos and for the Megillas Esther and for the Tainis, Matanas of Yonim, and all the things that go with it. But so what do you mean there's no difference? When it comes to the simcha starts already tonight. And I have to say that it's not as easy for some people as it would appear. A lot of people have trouble being happy. The reason is that they tend to look at their life and they see a lot of the things that aren't working out, which, by the way, are true. Everybody has things in their lives that don't work out. If we put more emphasis on the stuff that did, we'd be a lot happier, right? But, okay, so we need a time for simcha. We need a time to be happy. A lot of people today are so sad, you know? When I was growing up, they had Jewish music. It's been dead for many years. But there was this thing called Jewish music. You can go sometimes, like, you know, by Hasidim and see that, you know, where, like, you see on a Simchas Torah, they'll sing Tzaveh for like 40 minutes straight. Tzaveh, 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 right? You go to a chasana today, they can't play a song for more than like 3 minutes. Everyone starts getting edgy. They have to do it. And nobody listens to music anymore now. They blast it, you know? They have to turn it up and they blast it and everyone screams, you know? I remember when Jewish music died, I was there. Mordechai ben David came out with a song called Yidden, which was just Yiddish words written to a German rock song by Genghis Khan, you know? And you could see, like, what did we have back then? You know what I mean? Like, you know, the really wild music was like the Rabbi's Sons and Karl Bach, you know what I mean? Like, you know, they were like, 1, 2, 3. Right? So you'd be doing like, you know, kilo yitosh, Hashem, you know, everyone's shoulder to shoulder, just undulating back and forth. If you're lucky, you find a really crowded chasana, you don't even have to move. You just sway back and forth, you know. If you have some really good choreography, they turn directions. Right? Okay. Then all of a sudden the band would go, no. Everybody over 30 gets off the dance floor. And this is how you always know, this is how you know Jewish music is dead. And the girls give that primal scream. You know, like a song comes on and they go, ah! You never see that with Jewish music. Tzaveh, tzaveh, ah! You know, like, there's no primal screams by real Jewish music, you know what I mean? So people blast the music, you know, and they have to, you can't just do a concert, right? I don't know if you ever saw it at the Haas concert, they had like a Dvekis reunion. Avery Reinberg's playing at the piano and the other three are standing like this, you know what I mean? And they're like singing, and then they stop and he plays. It doesn't work that way today. You have to have 50 little kids in sailor outfits, you know, coming out and dancing, choreography. You know, one of the Haas concerts, what's his name? Avram Fried comes out with 2 non-Jewish dancers from Broadway, and they're like, you know, dancing it up, you know, like, you better send Mashiach or I'm going to come up there and get you, you know what I mean? Whatever his latest hit is, you know what I mean? Avram Fried, he's just losing. It gets more and more each year. It's like, you know, where the heck is Mashiach? You know what I mean? It's like, and it's like. So I said to somebody once, I said, what's? So here's a story for you. You guys are in Yerushalayim, so you appreciate this. You know that this place is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. You know, on those occasions when I leave Yerushalayim and I go someplace else, you know, my wife says, it looks like Israel. Right, Yerushalayim is not like Israel. It's its own little bubble, you know. So the Miami Boys Choir, you know, that wild rock band. So they wanted to do a concert in Yerushalayim. So they went to the Badatz of the Eida Charedis to get permission. And no one had ever done a concert before. So they said, we want permission to make a concert. They said, Mazeh concert. He says, you know, simcha. You make a simcha. You bring everybody together. You play music. They go, Simcha shel ma? Simcha siyam mesechta? Simchas beisa shoeva? Simchas chasen v'kala? Eze min simcha zeh? So they made it in Tel Aviv, but it's a true story. So I was talking about this once, and somebody said, one of the kids in the class said something that really hit home, and they said, That's because we're so sad today, we need a reason to be happy. So people have to come up with a reason to be happy because that normal happiness is not there. Hi, good morning. What's good about it? Okay. Oh, you're a tragedy waiting for a place to happen, you know what I mean? Thanks for throwing cold water on my day, you know? Because people don't have that. So simcha is such a beautiful thing. So I want to talk about what I think the simcha of Purim is. Now, I'm going to do this by going to a Gemara in Megillah that everybody knows. Yeah? Chayiv inish lebesume bepuria. A person is required to drink ad lo yada ben ara Haman u'barach Mordechai, till they don't know the difference between ara Haman and Baruch Mordechai. Now, the Ramah says that means you should drink a revius of wine. Since this is D'Rabbanan, that would be 3.3 ounces, and then take a nap for a half an hour. That's how you won't know who Mordechai and Haman are, because you'll be sleeping. That's one answer. The Ber Heitev says you have to drink enough so that you can't work out that the gematria of Ara Haman is the same as Baruch Mordechai. For most people, that's less than a sip, because they can't do it. They can't do it when they're sober, right? And yet more people tend to do this Mahadran. They may not be Mahadran Jews in other areas of their lives, but when it comes to this, suddenly it's Mahadran mina Mahadran. Yeah? And they drink sort of like the story, and the Mefarshim explain it, but I'll just present it in its simplest form because it's more shocking that way. Rabbi invites Rabbi Yosef over for his Purim Suda, and they get drunk, and in the midst, he decides to show him how to do shchita, and he shechs him. And Rabbi Yosef has the bad taste to die, thus ruining the party. But Rabbi, being an Amora, all the Tanaim and Amorim had the ability to do Tchias Amazing, brings him back to life. As the Gemara, but he turned down the invitation the next year, right? For what I consider to be obvious reasons. You know what I'm saying? It's one thing if the chicken's cold. It's another thing if your host shechs you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know? So, but that's what it is. And that's why a lot of people are familiar with that Gemara because it's usually sung in a drunken way, right? People are like, now I don't drink. I'm always high. In fact, on one or two occasions when I did drink, I become a very sad drunk, you know. And I just look at how terrible everything is and sad and stuff, and I just bum everybody out. And you know, I once had a guy in my shir in Or Sameach whose mother was a Beis Yaakov girl and father was a Hell's Angels. I wanted to meet that shadchan, but as you can imagine, this guy was pretty messed up. But he had an expression. He'd say, "My feeling is when you have a bad attitude and a bad mood, share it with other people." You know what I'm saying? So that's why I don't get drunk. But I see people who do. And there's something so distinctly unpleasant about it. First of all, they start, you know, sweating profusely. And then they see me, they go like, "You're my best friend!" And they throw their arms around you and they're rubbing their runny nose on you. "I love you so much." And I'm like, I'm going to have to burn this suit. I don't see any other solution at this point, you know what I mean? And, you know, in the good old days when I used to teach, I've lost all my jobs through my wit and personality, but when I used to teach, I'd have, you know, students over, you know, and there was always somebody who threw up on the table, like, you know, went through something like that. And you look at this and you say, there's something not Jewish about this. Right? It just doesn't feel Jewish. In fact, the late Jackie Mason, and I want to make it clear, he was not Shomer Torah and Mitzvahs, but he was Machshev Yadus. He always was. And in fact, most people don't know this, he had smicha from Moshe Feinstein. He was a practicing rabbi of a congregation before he He realized he was a Baal Taiva and he went off. You know, he didn't blame it on Judaism. He didn't want to live a different lifestyle. I have so much respect for him as opposed to that nut on Netflix who decided she didn't want to be religious, and now it's Judaism's fault. You know, Judaism is just go off. Nobody cares. Nobody wanted you in the first place. You know, just do your thing. She talks about freedom of choice, and then she abuses her son, abuses her daughter, abuses everybody. It's like, you know, it's like, well, you're such an open and accepting person, you lunatic. Anyway, but they always tried to get me to watch this. I was like, there's not enough money in the world to get me to watch this nut. You know what I mean? Kvetching. So Jackie Mason decided he wanted to live a different lifestyle. He didn't, but he chapped. Was meant a yid. He was so good at it. So he used to say at the end of the show, I can tell you right away who's a Jew and who's a Gentile. He says, every Gentile will say the same thing. Want a drink? Want a drink? How about him? Want a drink? Every Jew will say the same thing. Did you eat yet? So I ate. They didn't have coffee. Did you have coffee? A cake? Come up with cake, you know. Jews didn't drink. Now, okay, you're of a different generation. The world has changed, right? You know this. And when I first got married, Sivan will be 40 years. Thank you. You don't have to get something elegant, just expensive. Anyway, so what's appropriate? Cash, absolutely. Anyway, so my father bought me a bottle of Chivas Regal and Crown Royal. He said, oh, you get a scotch and a rye, it'll last you the rest of your life. Because when I was growing up, nobody drank. You know, you'd have these old men at the Kiddush eating herring on a cracker with hair growing out of their ears. Like, hev l'chaim, you know. You drink it, it's bitter, it tastes like Listerine, the old Listerine. You find every sore in your mouth. It's like, you know, who needs this, you know? But, so that's what they told me. So I was living in Eretz Yisrael, this story's maybe 30 years ago, and a bunch of yeshiva guys came, and they brought a bottle of Chivas Regal. Now, I'm used to getting, you know, the 5 shekel flowers, the 4 shekel Badatz wine with the picture of a holiday on it, you know, the box of candy from the seminary girls that they give them at the seminary to bring along because it's so thoughtful. Anyway, but a bottle of Chivas Regal, that's a year's supply, you know, and when they left, it was empty, and I didn't have any. And so I said, we're not in Kansas anymore, Toto, yeah? You know? So there's a problem now of alcoholism in the Jewish community. It never used to be. You never had alcoholism. Jews didn't drink. That used to be the thing. So okay, old people, right? And I go, on some level, I have to imagine that I must qualify at this point, but I've avoided old age by not maturing. But like my parents and my in-laws, I mean, you guys, I feel bad for you. You've never seen an adult. You don't even know what an adult is. You know, I grew up, my parents, my in-laws. When I was growing up, you never called an adult by their first name. It was Mr. this or Mrs. that or Miss this. You know, but you would never call one of my mother's friends, like, you know, Susie, hi, Susie, you know what I mean? And be like, that's Mrs. Rose. You know, it's like, okay, you know, sorry, you know. Today, if you call one of your mother's friends, you know, Mrs. So-and-so goes, I feel like you're talking to my mother-in-law. Like, call me Shani. You say, oh, okay, Shani, you know. So no one even knows what an adult is anymore, you know. I went to some shul and all the kids are running around outside. No one's davening. So I said, how come? He goes, because until a few years ago, their parents were running around outside. They just came in now because, you know, they let their kids run for them. They made a shliach out of them, you know. But to be an adult, you know, an adult is a whole different thing. An adult takes responsibility, you know. No one even knows what that is. President Reagan was the last adult that we had in the White House, yeah? There was a car bombing, thank you very much. There was a car bombing and he said, I am the commander-in-chief, it is my fault, and I will take full responsibility. Bill Clinton lied under oath. That's a felony. And here was his defense. It's not my fault, they shouldn't have asked me the question. Okay, that's why you have a generation today where no one takes any responsibility. When I was a kid, you fell down, you broke your leg. So the store owner came out and yelled at you, stupid kid, why don't you watch where you're going? And your father comes to pick you up. He says, stupid kid, why don't you watch where you're going? Take you to the emergency room. Stupid kid, why don't you watch where you're going? You watch where you're going. Now if you fall down, I'm going to sue you because your sidewalk was hard. It's not my fault. You know, they give out an award every year in honor of that woman who sued McDonald's because she bought a cup of coffee, kept it in between her legs while she was driving. It spilled on her. She burnt herself and crashed. And she said it was their fault because they didn't write that the coffee was hot. That's why whenever you buy a coffee today, you write, contents may be hot. Because, duh, it's a coffee. What'd you think? But I can't be expected. So some of the awards were given out to this one guy who put he was driving a Winnebago and he put it on cruise control. And in his mind, it's automatic pilot. You know what I mean? And he went in the back to get a drink, and of course, it veered off the road. And he sued Winnebago because it doesn't say that you have to continue to drive it when it's in cruise control. And he won another Winnebago. Yeah, I can only hope that this time he went all the way off the cliff. You understand? But I don't know if you guys have a chance to see Halloween costumes, but on the Superman costume it's written, caution, does not allow wearer to fly. On a hairdryer, I saw a warning label, do not use underwater, which is good advice. These are real things. I saw on a power saw, do not cut wood on your lap. I just need a moment to reflect on that one. But my favorite is Planters Peanuts. The symbol is a guy named Mr. Peanut, who is a peanut with a top hat and a cane. He is Mr. Peanut. The jar is shaped like a peanut. It says Planters Peanuts. And on the side, you can check this, it says, caution, may contain peanuts. Because nothing's ever my fault. I was mashgiach in a yeshiva during a particularly dark period of my life. I'm still in therapy. But there was this one guy who was much more mature than everybody else, and I know this because every day he would tell me how much more mature he was than everybody else. Because everybody came out of high school and he had spent a year in college, so he was much more mature, and he would tell me this all the time. And so one time I said, maturity means responsibility. Davening starts at 7:15. You don't get out of bed until 11, sometimes 12. So why do you think you're so mature? And without missing a beat, he looked at me and said, maybe you should be asking yourself why you can't motivate me to get out of bed. Because at the end of the day, this is your failure, Rabbi, isn't it? I was just amazed. That's amazing. I saw a sign once that said, there's no problem so big that you can't blame it on somebody else. You know what I mean? So to take responsibility, so we don't know what it is today to see an adult, to see a generation that took responsibility. And because of that, you see people get drunk. I mean, they had to come out with some big video. They filmed it in Muncie. This guy goes from Kiddush to Kiddush, and he comes staggering home drunk, and then his kid starts drinking. A terrible thing, But these are real-life scenarios. But there was a time when Jews did not drink. So you come into Purim. So you have old people, which is what I was referring to, like my in-laws, So they would have a Purim Suda, which just looked like a Shabbos meal, Except they would put out like a bottle of wine. Now you have to understand, when I was growing up, there was no kosher wine. There was only Manischewitz extra heavy Malaga that came in a gallon jug. You kept it under the bima, you know what I mean? This was not drinking wine. When the Gemara says that I drank the Daled Kosos and I had a headache until Shavuos, it was extra heavy Malaga. This stuff is undrinkable. They bring the giant thing out, they cut a piece and stick it in the cup and you suck on it. This stuff was undrinkable, So they put out like a bottle of Manischewitz and my brother-in-law would take a sip and everybody would be like, ooh, he's getting drunk. It's I was like, forget about it. Now I have people stumbling down the steps, throwing up everywhere, There's something not Jewish about it. And I want to ask the following question. If there is some kind of an imperative to drink on Purim, how come women don't drink? Now, I asked this question in the Vei Yerushalayim many years ago, and they said, they don't? That's like the story where someone says to the rabbi, why can't we eat pork? And he says, we can't? Uh-oh. Yeah, so They evidently were not aware of that custom, but yes, it is true. Women do not have the custom to drink. So the answer is pretty simple, because who's going to drive, right? That's the easy answer. The other thing is, if you haven't been here for Purim, so you'll be here for Purim, you go over to your Rabbi's house, and your Rabbiim are by definition irresponsible. Otherwise, they wouldn't allow you in their house on Purim. But they don't know any better, and they possibly plying you with drinks, which, again, like if you're under 18, they can go to jail, which also has its benefits. But anyway, I'm saying for the students. But anyway, so a bunch of drunk people, and they're all singing and that, and you just watch the wife watching everything. And it's like that scene in Mary Poppins, when the cannon goes off and they push the bookcase back and they're grabbing things like this and holding it up and keeping things from falling. And they're always watching that one guy out of the corner of their eyes when he starts to get quiet. She's like, take him outside! I know what's happening. So if there is something positive to it, why don't we do it? Okay. So I want to try to put it into perspective. What is wine? And by the way, I should point out that the mitzvah is wine, not alcohol. The Avudraham says clearly, because when you read the Megillah, they're always having sudas with wine, and the Nisim took place with wine. You're supposed to drink wine. Wine is the drink of the day, even though one genius said to me, I thought you're supposed to drink beer. I said, why? Shushan Habira. I was like, okay. I don't even know what to do at this point, There are people who point out the most amazing coincidences, which really are just coincidences, If you make an ABC into a gematria, so A equals 1 and B equals 2, C equals 3. So G-O-D equals 26, the same as Yud-K, Vav-K. Means nothing. But it is cool. Someone said to me, I can prove to you that that Torah is a constant mitzvah, because the pasuk of Na'aseh v'Nishma is chapter 24, verse 7. It's 24/7, get it? I said, we don't have prakim in Judaism. They were made up by the Christians, No, don't you get it? 24/7. It's like, okay, stick with that one. These are the same people who are careful to eat turkey on Thanksgiving, because hodu means turkey. It also means to give thanks. So you give thanks by eating turkey. Anyway, it's a fun religion. It keeps people busy. But anyway, okay. So the reason it all happens with wine, right? Says the Gemara, an interesting thing. Yayin has the same gematria as sod, secret. Why? Nichnas yayin, yotza sod. When the wine goes in, the secrets come out. So, okay, at a simple level, we understand this. The Gemara says there's 3 ways to know who a person really is: b'kisoi, b'kaso, or b'koso. When you get a person drunk, you get to hear what he really thinks. Yeah? When a person gets angry, you get to see who they really are. I don't know if anybody here is into English literature, but there's a character in Barnaby Rudge by Dickens where this guy works so hard to keep up this veneer, and at the end he finally loses it, and you see this guy's this vicious maniac. But, when people get angry, you get to see who they really are. And Bekiso, when there's money on the line, suddenly you see who a person really is when it comes down to having to lose money on something. So okay, the simple answer is the secret comes out when you get drunk. You don't have the self-control to stop yourself from saying what you want to say, right? But it's more than that. It's more than that. And I want to talk about that for a moment, but I just want you to realize, if I'm right, and women don't drink, right, it means that the reason we drink on Purim is to reveal the sod, the secret. And if women don't drink, it's because they don't know the secret. Actually, I'm going to say that exact sentence, only completely differently. Let me try again. If we drink because we want to reveal the secret, women don't drink because they already know the secret. Now, I've asked this to many women, and they assure me they don't know the secret. But they're clearly lying to me. I have 8 daughters. I know they are. Anyway, so they must know the secret. Just like I ask my Israeli neighbors who learn in Kollel, where I think they pull in a whopping, $400 a month, how come they're fixing up their apartment and driving a new car, and my house is falling apart, and I'm driving an old car, and no one will tell me the secret. But there's got to be a secret. Israelis have some kind of secret. I don't know what it is, that they know how to be able to spend money that they don't have. So one of them is overdraft, which is a great Israeli invention. You can spend money you don't have. And normally you have to only spend the money you do have. In America, if you run out of money, they don't keep giving you more. Here they just keep giving it to you. Well, now with Joe Biden, but it used to be that if you ran out of money, that was it, But now you can spend money you don't have. But it's a secret. So what's the secret that we want to? What do we have to get drunk to reveal? So what's the secret? You find secret always referring to one thing. God created the light, and he saw that the light was too good, so he hid it for when Mashiach comes. The Or HaGonuz. The light is hidden. Bikesh Yaakov, Legalis is a case. He wanted to tell when Mashiach was come, it was hidden from him. Anything that has to do with Mashiach and Geula is hidden. It's hidden. So what's the secret? What is the secret of the Geula? You have to get drunk to figure it out. And what does that mean? Right? So, take a look at the Purim story. Right? You don't see any open miracles. It's a political intrigue, very exciting, back and forth. This one's making a party, this one this. This just happens to show up. All these things that just happen to happen, and you don't see anything. Says Rav Dessler, imagine that you were a Jew at the time, and you see that Mordechai won't bow down to Haman. And you say, Mordechai, listen, you're going to get us into trouble. He says, I don't bow. I don't bow. Either because he was wearing a Avodah Zarah, or because he was making himself to an Avodah Zarah, whatever it is, I'm not going to bow down to him. Yeah? What ends up happening? A decree comes out that every Jew, man, woman, and child, are going to be killed. So, whose fault is this? Mordechai. Mordechai. They knew it was Mordechai's fault. It was all Mordechai's fault. And then, at the end of the story, the decree is annulled. Mordechai comes out in the royal robes. They still had the option to say, I'm glad God saved us. But Mordechai wasn't good. Mordechai did the wrong thing. He shouldn't have gotten us into trouble in the first place. But that's not what it says. It says, Kimu v'kiblu. They got up and they accepted it. What does that mean? The Gemara says, Haman min the Torah minayin. Where is Haman in the Torah? Now, to my mind, there's a lot of easy places to find it. Right? Parshas B'Shalach, when it says Haman over and over again, and it falls from the sky just like he did, so it works out well, right? Yeah, I would have taken that one, but they don't. They say when they're in the Gan Eden and they eat from the tree. So Kodesh Baruch Hu comes. What do? They hide. Now you got to admit that's not the brightest maneuver. You understand? Because probably God could see through the trees. So he comes in, he's rustling the bushes, and he says, Ayeka, where are you? And they say, I'm hiding. Which, by the way, makes it even less effective. If I say, where are you? And you say, I'm hiding, right? He says, why are you hiding? Hamin ha'etz, from the tree I told you not to eat from. Did you eat? Okay, what was the correct response at that point? Yes, and I'm very sorry. That would have been the end of the story. And God would have forgiven them, and that was it. Instead, Adam did what men have done for millennia. It's my wife's fault. I didn't do it, my wife made me. Says to the wife, did you do it? It was the snake. So you guys didn't do anything wrong. Victim of circumstance. Yeah? Okay. So I'm going to have to ask you guys to leave the garden and go outside and think about it. And see if you can maybe figure out what you did wrong. This, by the way, was the first gullus. It was the first gullus. And in fact, the word that he gives him, ayeka, where are you, is the same word as echa. It's churban. It's destruction. You brought death to the world. Why? Because God is coming to look for you and you're hiding. So God says, you want to hide from me? I'll hide from you. Esther minatar minayin, hasda asta panai. I will hide from you. So God's hiding and we're hiding. That's called gullus. That's the problem. That's where all the difficulties come from. We're hiding from God and God's hiding from us. Okay. We come out of Egypt. We build the Mishkan, this week's parsha. It turns into the Beis HaMikdash. We stay in Israel for 850 years. It's a pretty good run. 850 years. And then the Beis was destroyed and we go into exile. What happens? The Gemara in Megillah, I see someone's learning it in the back there, so he can support me on this. The Gemara in Megillah says, the people said, do we still have to keep the Torah? If a man divorces his wife, does she still have to listen to him? God destroyed our house, the Beis HaMikdash, kicked us out. It's over. This Jewish experience is over. By the way, that's how the Gra explains Chad Gadya, when he says the stick was the Mata Moshe that took us out of Mitzrayim. The fire was when the Beis HaMikdash was burnt, because then that all of Yetzias Mitzrayim, the whole Mahal, is gone. We're going to have to start over. And that's what he says. He says, it's over. God doesn't want us anymore. He's tossed us away. How does Amalek appear on the scene? It's just before the following words. Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu em ayin. Is God really with us or not? Does God care about us anymore? And then Amalek attacks. You know why? Because when you're in trouble, you turn to your parents. And you say, help me, I'm being attacked. But I thought you didn't think I was there. I know, but I haven't got the luxury right now of not believing in you because I'm in trouble. So please, come and save me. Amalek is always there as an invitation for us to come out of hiding. That's Haman. Did you eat from the tree? What was the purpose of that question? God knows the answer. Because we were hiding. He says to us, to the Jewish people, where are you? We say, we're hiding. Why? Did you do something wrong? No. Okay, so what can I do? You don't even realize you did anything wrong. You're hiding. And if you're hiding and I'm hiding, we call that gullus. Because we're not where we belong. Everybody's hiding. God's hiding from us. We're hiding from Him. We're lost in the darkness. And so, what do? So Amalek comes, that's what Rashi says in Beshalach, to get us to come out of hiding and say, help, I need your help. By the way, there's machlekes, what the Eitz Hadas is. One was, it was wine. They took grapes and squeezed it and made wine. That's what it is. They drank it, and that was the Eitz Hadas. Because we ate from the Eitz Hadas and we thought we would know. So we drink until we don't know. You know why? Because we don't know, but we think we do. Turn on anything today and there's a panel of like talking heads. And 6 people all sitting there talking. Yappa, 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 yappa. I can explain this, I can give you an answer, I can this. We know everything. It's a hard thing to recognize. I don't know. Sometimes I just don't know. And that's very hard, especially for people who are control freaks. And they want to believe that they do know. Says the Maharal, what happens when you drink? If you drink enough, you know that you're helpless. I can't handle things. Yeah? Steve Martin, who was this comic, he's still around, but he was so big in the 70s, he said, I had to retire. He was filling up stadiums, to do comedy show, He says, this has to crash. He just retired because he says, I can't handle the pressure, But he would have all these kind of like really crazy things he would do. But he told the story, he goes, yeah, my girlfriend died and I can't help but feel responsible. We went out for drinks and I think she had too much to drink. And I told her, I don't want you to drive home. And she says, I'm okay. And I said, no, please give me your car keys. And she said, no. And I shot her. Anyway, you get the idea. By the way, there's only one holiday that's called the holiday of schok, of laughter. Why? Because a joke is always unexpected. When you tell a joke, it's got to be that you didn't realize what was happening. If you know what's happening, it's not a joke. Two guys walked into a bar and ordered a drink. Not very funny. Two guys walked into a bar and said, ouch. Not funny either, but at least it's a joke, because you thought they were walking into a pub and they actually walked into a bar. You know, they banged into a bar. So that's, every joke is going to be based on that. Yeah? Woody Allen, when he used to do stand-up, he said, I was poor growing up and I had to wear my cousin's hand-me-downs, and it was embarrassing because she wasn't my size. Okay, so that's why he took cousin, because you don't realize until the end, you know? And that's why sometimes there's a joke with a joke on it, right? You know, and they call that in Hebrew, hafuch hafuch, you know? This guy, and by the way, I resent this type of humor. I think it's terrible. It's making fun of mother-in-laws, and I think it's a terrible thing. And I've told that to my mother-in-law many times. And my wife is a mother-in-law. And so I don't think it's right to tell these jokes, but for educational purposes, you'll forgive me. But there was this funeral procession, and there was the coffin, and there was a dog, and a very long line of mourners. So he goes to the first guy and said, whose funeral is it? He says, my mother-in-law. He says, what happened? He says, the dog bit her and she died. So he says, can I borrow the dog? He says, get in line. Anyway. A joke works on the unexpected. My father, Shami, had 7 jokes. Here's one of them. You know, a mother comes in. Her son is 35 years old. He's still sleeping, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He hasn't gotten up. She kicks the bed. She says, Antonio, what's wrong with you? You don't get up. You don't have no money. You don't get no job. You don't have no girlfriend. You have no life. I'm embarrassed to be your mother. Antonio looks and says, Mama, how can you talk like that? We're not Italian. Anyway, so it's always unexpected, because the entire Purim story is unexpected. You didn't see it coming. So that's why humor, and by the way, the Mesilas Yesharim says this very clearly. He says, laughter is the same thing as drinking, because when you laugh, it releases endorphins. You have probably been in this scene at some point, being in a dormitory, where you're up too late at night and people are saying crazy jokes, and you see some guy laughing, he's falling off the chair, he's laughing so hard, you know, and you say, wow, what's that guy on? Endorphins. When you laugh so much, it's like it's an artificial high. So even though laughter is not the best medicine, it's a very effective narcotic, yeah? So people laugh, you know? So that's Purim. Purim is all the unexpected, because when you laugh, you suddenly realize, I thought I knew it was happening the whole time, and then boom, it turns around and you realize you don't. That's the whole Purim story. That's why it's Chok. It's not Simcha, right? Sukkot is the holiday of Simcha, but Purim is the holiday of laughter. That's why I think it's filled with so many incredibly annoying songs, right? Purim has the most annoying songs ever. V'gam, 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 charvona, 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 zachor latov, v'gam, 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 v'gam. I know 2 people who died saying that song. They were beaten to death by an angry mob. You know? Yeah, it's the point is, it's supposed to be laughter. It's supposed to be something where you suddenly realize, I didn't know it was happening. Ask the Gemara, why don't we say Halo on Purim? The Gemara gives 3 answers. Number 1 is, it happened outside of Eretz Yisrael. We only say Halo on miracles that happened in Eretz Yisrael. Yitzias Mitzrayim. Okay, we weren't in Eretz Yisrael yet. Once we get in, you have to be there. That's answer number 1. Number 2 is, the Megillah is the Hallel. Megillas Esther. It's Megaleh the Hester, reveals the hidden, right? The third answer is because it's not such a happy holiday. When the story opens, the Jews are in Gullus, the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed, and the evil king Achashverosh is in charge. When it ends, the Jews are in Gullus, the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed, and the evil king Achashverosh is still in charge. Okay, we didn't all get killed, which is a good thing, and I want to go on record with that. 100%, given the choice between being wiped out and not being wiped out, for sure. But that's not how we normally have a holiday. It's a geula. We get back to Hanukkah, we get back to Beis Hamikdash, we rededicate it. You know, it's got to be a yontif. This is not yontif. This is not geula. This is the end of Gullus. When do you celebrate Purim? Adar Aleph or Adar Beis? Asked the Gemara. Adar Aleph because Zriza Makdim L'Mitzvahs, or Adar Beis to put it closer to Pesach, and the answer is Samach Geula LeGeula. The opening for the Geula of Pesach is the Geula of Purim. What happens in Purim? Ada de lo yada. You have to drink until you don't know. Because when you don't know, then you turn and say, I have no answer. God, I need your help. I need help. And when you recognize that, that's when we come out of hiding. And when we come out of hiding, Hashem comes out of hiding. That's the secret of the Purim story. It's not a very happy holiday because it's the tragedy that gets us. As the Chazal say, when Achashverosh took off his ring and gave it to Haman, it was more effective than all the prophets that we had. It's sad, but it's true. Tragedy tends to motivate people more. I met a secular businessman once in Chicago. He came to one of my talks. And he said, the average Jew has never heard of Sheva Brachos. But they all know how to say Kaddish. Because the one thing we do well is mourn. We're good at that. We're good at tragedy. There were people in my parents' generation, and they still meet these older people, they say, I'm a proud Jew. He says, really? He says, yeah. I used to go to school, and the Goyim used to beat me up because I was a Jew. He says, what are you proud of? He said, every day they beat me up. No, I understand that, but what are you proud of, Judaism? They used to beat me every... what are you, a masochist? You know what I mean? That's what you're proud of, that you got a beating? Sure, because anti-Semitism wakes people up. I'm sorry to say it. If you see somebody who hasn't been in shul in a long time and they're davening with a lot of kavanah, and you say, why? You say, well, I looked at my life and everything's great. You know, my family is healthy, all my kids are on the derech, you know, I make a good parnasa. I decided now is the time I should work on my spiritual life. Not a chance. You see somebody davening away, someone's dying, someone died, you know, he lost his money, one of his kids is sick, you know, it's tragedy. Someone who's a bigger cynic than me, if you can imagine it, said to me once, I finally figured out why people die. Because otherwise there wouldn't be one shul, one yeshiva, or one mikveh. They're all named after dead people. You understand? Because death somehow motivates us. That's very exciting. We like tragedy. We do well with tragedy. If we did well with simcha, it would be better. But what happened in Mitzrayim? We go down to Mitzrayim, and as soon as we started assimilating and losing our identity, anti-Semitism came, and suddenly we turned to God. God, help us. Oh, okay. Yeah? Abba. We came out of hiding. That's what a Molech has the ability to do. That's what Haman is. Did you eat from this tree? It was an invitation to come out of hiding. Many years ago, 20 years ago, there was a whole bunch of bus bombings here in Israel, particularly Yerushalayim. And I remember on a Sunday morning, there was an 18 bus that blew up. And so all the talking heads got on TV and on radio, and they said, oh, this is the fault of the Labour Party. They were in power at the time. And, we told them to close the shtachim, and they let the Arabs in, and that. Fine. They closed the shtachim. The next week, Sunday morning, the same bus route, the 18 bus, blew up, suicide bomber. So now all the talking heads come on and they go, well, Yerushalayim is a mixed city, there's Arabs all over, there's nothing you can do. Nothing you can do. The next week on Tainus Esther, there was a suicide bomber in Tel Aviv in a mall and blew up a bunch of kids in Purim costumes. And suddenly the talking heads went silent. They couldn't explain it. So they asked, should we still have Purim? And someone said, what do you mean? Now you understand Purim. Ad lo yoda. You have to drink till you don't know. Because as long as you get up there and all the talking heads say, we know. We know. I remember when Barak was prime minister for about 4 weeks. So the second intifada broke out. And he said, if the Arabs keep this, we're going to give them 48 hours to stop this. And if they don't stop, we're going to give them another 48 hours. You understand? He goes, Anachnu neida ma la'asot. Clearly they didn't. That's what we say in Tachlan. V'anachnu lo neida. We don't know. But we want to believe, we understand, we can explain everything. We're in charge. And it's such an amazing thing to let go and say, some things I don't know. Sometimes I just don't know. We got to the airport. It was one of those trips where the plane goes through Europe and you change it. So like you have to be at the airport at like 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm there with all the little kids. I'm on a line waiting to check in. We had the slowest check-in person in the history of check-in people. By the time we finally get up to the desk, and it's getting later and later, and I said to my wife, just relax. She goes, what are we going to do? I said, either we'll make the flight or we won't. There's nothing I can do. Anyway, she very slowly punches in all of the passports and all of the information. It doesn't print out. So she does it again. Doesn't print out. So she walks very slowly to the supervisor. The supervisor comes in, punches it all in, it doesn't work. She says, I'm going to have to do it by hand. 11 boarding passes and 17 luggage tags. She's writing by hand, and she does not write any faster than she types. I offered to help. She said, no, I have to do this myself. My wife looks at it and she says, they're finishing boarding in 10 minutes. I said, there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do. Okay, she's still writing, she's still writing, and we start to hear the announcements. Mishpachat Orlofsky, Mishpachat Orlofsky, Emunah, Mishpachat Orlofsky. Says, they're calling us. I said, there's nothing I can do. I don't have a boarding pass, you know what I mean? So finally, we managed to get them. Security came. He goes, Matante Orlofsky, he goes, come on, So we're running through the airport, running through the thing. We get to the plane, we get on. I cannot tell you the looks of pure joy for these people who've been sitting on this plane for 45 minutes waiting for a large Haredi family to come on. And for the flight to wherever it was to Europe, we didn't have seats together. And I mentioned I have girls, and a couple of my kids go, I'm not sitting there. So I took my wife and the baby and I sat down. She says, what's going to happen? I said, I don't know. Maybe they'll be arrested. Maybe they'll be thrown off the plane. I don't know, but I can't control the situation. It's out of my control. Eventually everybody sat down, we took off, we got there, it was fine. But to be able to look at a situation and say, I'm not in control. Because there's so many things in your life you have no control over. You can't decide if you're going to come from a normal family or not. Yeah? Odds are you won't. Yeah? You can't decide if you're going to be rich or poor. You can't decide if you're going to be healthy or sick. There's so many things in life you have no control over. And so at the end of the day, I have to know, ad lo yada, I don't know. There's so many things I just don't know. And that was Purim. They were in the darkness the whole time. They didn't know what was happening until the end, when they finally see V'nahabachu and everything turns around. Then they realized God was there the whole time. Like the poem they found from this little girl in Auschwitz who wrote, I believe in the sun even when I don't see it shining, and I believe in God even in the worst of times. So the question I said at the beginning, so why don't women drink? Because women don't have to know. It's a genetic defect. I don't know why, but almost every man, I'm going back before Waze. There was a time before Waze. You had to go someplace, you'd write down directions on a piece of paper, And many men were too macho for that. They said, I'll know it when I see it. I don't know how many of you have ever been to the Catskills mountains. So every road looks exactly the same, 54, 55, 45, 44, they're all exactly the same. And so a guy comes to the crossroad, And he says, I think I go left. And the wife, being so totally unhelpful, says, why don't you ask someone? He said, no, I know it. And they make a left. They go for about a mile, 2 miles, 3 miles. They go, no, I think it's the other way. They turn around. And they go all the way back to start. Then they start going the other direction. 1 mile, 2 mile, 3 mile. They go. I think I was right the first time. They turn around again. There are still people from last summer. They go another 2 miles, turn around, go back the other way. Rather than ask for directions. And women are okay saying, I don't know. But men have to be in control. They have to know. They have to know what's going on. Yeah? Moshe Shapiro says, you see a guy reads the newspaper in the morning, yells at his wife. Well, I don't know why these people are doing it. What are they thinking? No, they see this is not going to work. It's crazy. Solved all the world's problems. Puts on the paper, goes to work. You know what I mean? I know what's going on. I understand. You don't know. And that's why in Egypt, in 2 weeks parsha, 3 weeks parsha, yeah, there's that Rashi that's just dripping with pathos. The women came to donate their little copper mirrors. And Rashi tells the story. They were slaves, and they're sitting there with these little copper mirrors fixing themselves up to try to interest their husbands so that they can have children in Egypt. The husbands had already given up. So what? I'm broken from the work. And what? Bring a child into this hell? For what? So he could be a brick in the wall? He's shechted for his blood? Who knows what? Best case scenario, be a slave? And the wife said, but the Geul is coming. We have to have children. Now, I've never been a slave, and I've never been pregnant, and I've never been a pregnant slave. But somehow deep down, I feel like it can't be pleasant. So if there was anybody who didn't want to have children, you'd think it would be the women. But the women were already in the Geula. They couldn't explain how. They built the egel, right? People say, how could the Dor Dea build the egel? I don't know how they didn't build the egel. Just read Rashi. Yeah? They suddenly see Choshech and Arvuvia and the entire time-space continuing is collapsing before them. They see Moshe dead, being carried up in a coffin to heaven. And everything is falling apart. And they come to Aaron and Hur, and they say, listen, the world is ending here. Moshe couldn't get the Torah, and we know that Kodesh Baruch Hu said, V'yom hashishi, if you don't accept the Torah, the world's going to go back to Tohu Bohu, and that's what's happening. We can see with our own eyes. So you're going to have to build us something like a mishkan or something so we can talk to God, because we can't do it ourselves. And Hur says, return home, there's nothing to see, right? So they kill him. They say, Aaron, you're next. He says, okay, stall for time. He says, okay, get your jewelry, get the jewelry. Right? The Das Kedem says, they said to their wives, give us the jewelry. They said, why? He says, because we have to build something to communicate to God. He goes, no, Moshe's going to bring down the Torah. He says, no, Moshe's dead. He says, no, he's not. He says, we saw him dead. No, you didn't. Okay, listen, I'm not arguing with you. And they ripped off the jewelry, pulled it off. I hope those were clip-ons. Here's all the gold. Because your wife gave you the jewelry? No, we ripped it off. That makes sense. Okay. We'll throw it in, we'll melt it down, and then we'll have a committee decide what we should build, put out coffee and cake. You know what I mean? It'll be wonderful. In the meantime, Micha throws in the little thing, Alei Shar, boom, out comes the egel fully made, walking, talking, and eating grass. And the people say, we were successful. And the whole world goes back to normal. And Aaron says, I'm having a bad day here. I don't know what to do. All right, tomorrow we'll celebrate. Tomorrow, right? How come the women didn't participate? How did they know Moshe was still alive? Because they knew that it could not end this way. It couldn't. And then the Meraglim come back with a report and they say, listen, nothing personal. There's no way we can do this. The people are giants. We were the size of grasshoppers. It's impossible. There's no way to get in there. We're all going to get killed. The Meraglim went from house to house shaking hands with everybody. Goodbye, we're all going to die. And all the men started crying. And the women are like, what's going on? He says, we're all going to die tomorrow when we try to go into exile. He says, no, we're not. Moshe said, we're going to go in. Said, how do you anticipate this? I don't have to work out the details. Yeah? This is such an old reference, I'm almost embarrassed to bring it, but Rocky III, where he had to fight Mr. T. So he's interviewing Mr. T. He goes, so what's your strategy? Strategy? I don't got no strategy. I want to kill the sucker, right? That was basically our approach. We were just going to walk in with the Aron and sing Vayihi Binza Aron, and everyone was going to die. Because most people, when they listen to Chazonis, want to die. So we're just going to march right in. And the women were like, I don't have to work out the details. You know, could anyone have anticipated Yetzias Mitzrayim? Could anyone have anticipated Kriyas Yamsuf? No. The women said, it's okay. I have to have that Emunah. Purim is, I believe, in the sun even when I don't see it shining. It means that even when things don't make sense, Stephen Covey in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People says that you can make mistakes when you're a parent or in any relationship as long as you understand that it's you've made deposits in the emotional bank account so you can make a withdrawal. God had a lot going for him. He had the 10 plagues, he split the Red Sea, he brought the mun, all this stuff. When something happens that you don't understand, give him the benefit of the doubt. And everybody's going to have moments in their lives. There's a story where Shach went to the Brisker Rav, and he said, I don't understand what you mean by Emunah. Any intelligent person can figure out there's a God. Intellectually, you can figure it out. And the Brisker Rav says, you're right. Emunah starts when it doesn't make sense. And so when you're at the exile and you see Moshe dead, you see the world collapsing, and it doesn't make any sense, how strong is your hold on reality, and how much do you buy into the illusion? And that's why in Purim we wear masks, because we don't see clearly. We don't know what's going on. That's our challenge. My friends, on Purim we sing, and we dance, and we drink, just to forget that we don't know everything. To remind ourselves, Ad lo yoda, I don't know. Some people, it's easier for them. They can just take a little sip and lie down and realize there are things I don't understand. Other people have to get stinking drunk till they're smart enough to figure out, I don't know what's going on. But there are always going to be questions in your life. One of my kids was going through a particularly difficult time. And she says to me, what does God want from me? And I said, when it's over, I'll tell you. I don't know now. I have to see. But when it's over, we'll look back and we'll figure it out. And it turned out to be such an unbelievable example of Siyata Deshmaya of HaKadosh Baruch Hu taking care of us, that it was just dramatic. You couldn't miss it. Couldn't miss God's fingerprints on the story. So my friends, the simcha comes from the Nohafachu. Things turn upside down. The zodiac sign is Pisces. It's called Dugim in Hebrew. It's not like this, it's a circle, right? Head to toe, because you don't see where the beginning is and where the end is. And the Mirza Hashem, if we do Purim the right way, Samach Geula Geula, this Pesach, those of you who are planning on going back to your countries of origin will be staying here as your family comes to join you to bring the Korban Pesach. And finally, the lights will come back on. Thank you very much.